Originally, when I left art school, I thought I wanted to make fiction films. Films with stories and characters, and particularly interested in kind of the horror movie genre, I suppose. But yeah, I made a couple of films like that, and I realised it didn't feel natural. It wasn't really the way I wanted to make films. So I started to make a series of films without any people in. So things that I could do I knew I could do on my own. I could just go places with my camera and film. And so that's why there was a series of films which are without any people. They're kind of spaces that are places that people have left behind. So what traces of humans are still sort of left in those spaces. But they're kind of enclosed worlds, they're hermetic worlds. And I think when I kind of got tired of not having people. Mm-hmm. I wanted to film people again, but it changed my approach. And so when I decided to film people again, I wanted to somehow continue this idea that they were people, but they'd created very specific worlds, that these enclosed spaces, mm-hmm. Very sort of specific to them. It continues quite naturally to me. They don't seem like two very separate types of film. They just, one has people and then the others don't have people. I got really excited about these worlds that these people had created, in the wilderness on their own. And so that's continued over the last few years, really. And it's starting to change now. What usually happens is friends usually have recommended people, or people that I've filmed have recommended other people. So I'll go and visit, and it's an instinctive thing. If there's a spark, mm-hmm. If there's something there that I think I can make a film with, so it doesn't always happen. Sometimes you go somewhere and you just don't feel anything, and that's mm-hmm. fine. You just have a chat, have a cup of tea, and then leave. But with someone like S in Origin of the Species, my friend had told me that here's this guy, he lives on his own, and he's spent 20 years reading all of Darwin's books. Mm-hmm. So that seemed like enough of a kind of reason to go and meet him. And then when I met him and started talking to him, I realised he was this man who's really interesting, and he kind of mirrors Darwin's later life. Darwin spent a lot of time just in his garden looking at worms, and here's somebody who's looking at the whole world, the whole universe, but in a really small space. And so S is kind of doing the same thing, really. Mm-hmm. So that's the spark, and then I go back a number of times. Yeah, I think that probably comes from I like making things. So I used to make more three-dimensional things, sculpture, and I think so. Filmmaking to me is. It never felt natural to ask other people to do other things, do other jobs. I was quite excited about learning all the stages and So that's what I've continued to do. So I'll go and spend time in these places, and I'll collect images and sounds in the same way. Really, I walk around with my camera and my sound recorder, but they tend to be recorded separately. Mm-hmm. So that then when I get to the editing, I've got a whole load of separate images and separate sounds, which then become a kind of collage to put together. The images aren't necessarily tied to the sounds. It kind of is, so the sounds get freed up, I suppose. So the editing is like a play. It's a playing with these ingredients and seeing when things, pop. Mm-hmm. And just instinctively seem right, even if they're wrong. I think there's many reasons why I've stuck with film. I think the physicality of it is really important, and the fact that I hand develop a lot of the films, particularly the black and white ones. They're all hand developed at home. Still continuing relationship with like making things. Physical things, so the film is still like physical. Mm-hmm. I like the dirt, the things that attach itself to the negative and to the film print. Because a lot of the places where I'm filming, they're not, very clean. So somehow digital seems a little bit too clean a way of kind of transforming those worlds. I like the dirt and mess, and also the mistakes that happen, the chance things that happen with film, and also the time. I like the time it takes. I really like the fact that I'll be somewhere for 2 weeks filming, and not completely sure what I've got. So I don't see what I filmed until I get back home. And then there's all these great surprises and disappointments, and they all inform, what the film's going to be. That's started to change now, because I felt like I used that the clockwork Bolex for a really long time, and sort of filmmakers and movements have given themselves rules, and I can totally understand the idea behind giving yourself rules, because you can they're kind of something to work to, but also to sometimes break as well. And I think with the clockwork Bolex, it became something which it's a kind of challenge to fit what you want into that 30-second shot. So then the films already have this inherent rhythm, but more recently I've wanted to make longer shots. I don't know. I just feel like it's time to stretch things out even more. So the last couple of films I've started using a motorised camera, which means I can just take, up to a 10-minute shot or something like that. So again, you're still working within limits. I guess over the last few years I've been showing more of my films in galleries. I still like to show them in cinemas and galleries as well, and see how they change for me and for the audience as well, in the different spaces. Slow action was more deliberately, it was commissioned by a gallery, so I was thinking much more in terms of an installation and how I could play with the sound a bit more. But I think one thing that I like about the gallery space is that it can be immersive in a different way. You can kind of create spaces. I quite like what happens to time sometimes in that space, as long as people stay.